Hey, my name is Doug Davis, and I'm the owner of Yokna Bottoms Farm. This farm was founded by myself and Daniel Doyle. The idea happened in the summer of 2009 when Daniel was my student at the University of Mississippi. He was a student in the class I was teaching. And we got to talking and got to know each other and talking about sustainable agriculture, which he had an interest in. Things happened in his life. Later that fall, in October, he called me up and he asked if I was really interested in starting the farm, and I said yes. And he said, well, would you think of me as a farm manager? And I said, sure. And he moved here in October, and January 2010 we started the farm. We started off doing about 1/4 of an acre. We had to clear the land of pine trees. The second year of the farm we expanded to about 1 acre, or a little over 1 acre. Last year we expanded to about 3 acres, and then this year we grew up to 6 acres, which is where we're at now. We still have an extra 6 acres of land in the pine trees behind me that we can clear those pine trees and plant in that land. We are in South Lafayette County. Our mail address is technically Oxford, although we're not in the Oxford city limits. We're 2 miles straight east of the 7-9 split, 6 miles south of Oxford. Miss Lottie Phillips, who lives in the house up in the hill behind me, she grew up on this land. And her father, back in the 30s and 40s and then into the 50s, grew vegetables on this land, plus cotton, soybean, and corn, but also had watermelons, black-eyed peas, sweet corn, beans, and other vegetables. Around the 1950s, 60s, as much as I can tell, this land became part of a large cotton farms, or they would either grow cotton, corn, or soybeans on it, large scale. And around 1980, it was started being used for grazing cattle, and it grazed cattle up until about 2000, when the land came under the Conservation Recovery Program, and that's when the pine trees were planted. When I purchased the land in 2007, I was able to opt out of the CRP program, and which allowed me to take the pine trees out. And so that's basically brings the history of the land up to where it is today. First you clear the trees, then you got to get all the brush and the grass off, and then you till it up, and then you got to add all the fertilizers and the other amendments. When I say fertilizer, we use organic fertilizer, primarily chicken manure or horse manure. But you got to fertilize land, you got to put lime on it, and then you got to somehow figure out how you're going to get water on it. So you have to get an irrigation system put in. My parents and my immediate family are all educators, but the previous generations have all been farmers. So now I'm back to being an educator / farmer. But I've always loved farming. I've always been involved in agriculture all my life. And prior to coming to Oxford in 2007, I was a professor at Georgia State University in Atlanta. And so I lived in a very urban area, kind of in a suburban house with a large lot. And I had a big vegetable garden there. But I got real involved with the sustainable agricultural efforts in and around Atlanta, and kind of was always curious, could I do it? Would I be able to grow food organically? And when I came here, I kind of realized that it was an opportunity to try that, so I intentionally looked for some land to purchase that would be suitable for farming. I think it's absolutely essential, for the prosperity of our country and even the survival of the human race. I think we have to, our commercial agricultural system is just that, it's unsustainable. And it, as population in the world continues to grow, we're just simply going to have to learn how to get more productivity off our land. And while large-scale commercial agriculture produces a tremendous amount of food, sustainable agricultural techniques will give you much more food off a given piece of land. Our methods are based on a philosophy of feeding the soil, and the simplest way to think about our philosophy is that we're actually growing soil, and then the soils grow the plants. So everything we do, we pay attention to what impact it's going to have on all the different life forms that exist in the soil. So when we add fertilizer, we're not putting the fertilizer in there so much to feed the plants as we're putting the fertilizer in there to grow organisms in the soil, the beneficial bacteria, the earthworms, the mycorrhizal fungi that live in the soil, and those are the mechanisms in a forest that makes a forest healthy. You see a healthy, prosperous forest full of plants, and it's not being covered with chemical fertilizer. All that's done naturally, and so we're trying to mimic that system. And so we're trying to be a low input farm and a zero input farm with external resources. And we're far from that. We don't have enough animals yet to produce the fertilizer we need, but we're moving in that direction where we, with the healthy soil, we don't have to add a lot of amendments. We don't have to use a lot of plastic row covers. We minimize the water we use. And as we're learning, it's a slow process, but we really are getting there. We're seeing our older fields that we spent more time on. They're full of earthworms. They're full of life. The crops in them are doing much better. Typically, the crops that we struggle with are the crops we're just putting on newly tilled up and broken land. Organics, it's a tricky question because you ultimately can trip yourself up on thinking about well what's natural and what's unnatural, and by its very definition, if something exists, it has to be natural. But organic, in terms of how we think of it, is very much in line with USDA organic requirements, or certified naturally grown, which is what we are. And it means that we don't use any artificial chemical fertilizers, pesticides, herbicides. We make every effort to find organically produced seeds. They're not available for all crops. We use organically grown starts. In fact, most things we transplant into our fields we're growing in our own greenhouse. So essentially it means not using petroleum-based artificial chemical additives in any area of the operation of the farm. We've had some great carrot crops, and most people when we first started growing carrots didn't really think carrots would do too well around here, and we grow carrots both in the spring and the fall, and we've grown a lot of different kinds, and as a whole they've done extremely well. And this spring the weather was really damaging to most of our crops, but the lettuce really liked it. Most years we'll plant lettuce in March, and then it'll grow really well, and then by the end of April we'll have a 95 degree day, and the lettuce will turn bitter, and then it'll bolt and be no good. This year we'd cut the lettuce off, and 2 weeks later it'd be grown back, and we cut it off again, and 2 weeks later it'd be grown back. And so we had really amazing lettuce this spring that I was pretty proud of. But overall, we specialize in a lot of variety. We're doing a CSA, and part of the CSA model is that you're splitting up your food among a large number of people who have financially supported the farm. And when you're splitting up the food, you want to give them a little bit of variety. And so we plan a lot of everything. And that can be a problem, but it also is a good thing. Like this spring, when we had some plants like our potatoes that did very poorly, we had other plants like our lettuce that made up for that. Well, first of all, I want people to know we're here and what we're doing. But second, a lot of times you hear people, I've heard it multiple times, oh, that's a commune out there. Well, we aren't a commune, but that's an interesting term, but I want people to know that small farms like this are businesses, and they are businesses of growing and selling food, and to grow the food requires a lot of hard work from a lot of people. And so my biggest thing is I think people, I want people to start seeing these farms as a real economic opportunity for the area, as a business opportunity for people who are interested to get into it, either farming or some kind of support mechanism, like the two local nuts. Two chefs in town started a business, and they're buying a lot of our food that's damaged in some way, or it's getting a little old and not looking so good, and it's not food we can sell, but it's still perfectly good food. They're taking that food and they're taking it from other farmers around the area, and they're making it into ready-to-eat products. And so there are all kinds of opportunities available for folks to get involved in this, and I just want people to know and see that those opportunities are available. Well, I'm thinking back to my time in Atlanta, when how much I was involved with and came to learn about sustainable agriculture through the group Georgia Organics. And the Mississippi Sustainable Agriculture Network is very much like Georgia Organics, and I think it can provide a tremendous service, one, by informing the public, two, by helping farmers and helping develop the support systems that the farmers need to transport, market, distribute their food, and then also open new markets, farm to school type programs, other new markets for farmers to sell their food to.